Now improve your English by answering an interesting question. If you want to get stronger, it's important to practice. Speaking practice number 26. Today's question. If the police stop a driver who's driving drunk, do you think that their driver's license should be taken away? Support your answer with details and examples. If you're interested in TOEFL practice, this is similar to an independent speaking question. You have to explain your opinion, but you only have 15 seconds to prepare. Then you have to speak for 45 seconds. Want to try? If you're interested in doing it before you see my answer, you can think about it now. Then, when you're ready, let's take a look. Example answer. In my opinion, if someone drives drunk, their license should be revoked. A license proves that you have been trained and tested about the correct way to operate an automobile. Nobody who has a license can claim to be ignorant about the law, and they must know how dangerous it is. Still, some people may say that revoking the permission to drive is too strict. But every year, car accidents cause a huge number of lifelong injuries and many deaths. I have an acquaintance whose car was hit when a drunk driver went through a red light without stopping. It was one of the most terrifying moments of her life. I think it's a common experience, and since the danger is so high, the punishment should be very strict. Keywords. Should driving drunk mean you lose your license? The first word is revoke. Revoke means to cancel, take back, or reverse a previous decision. If you receive a driver's license, that means you can drive a car. But there are many rules that you have to follow. If you drive too fast or drink alcohol, your license may be revoked. Goodbye, license. No more driving. Next is claim. Claim means to say strongly that something is true, especially when it's hard to see the evidence. Many people like to claim that they have caught a huge fish, but if there's no fish to see, it's hard to believe. Ignorant. Ignorant means lacking knowledge, not knowing something. When we say someone is ignorant, it means they don't know, they haven't learned. When you hear someone say something like China is next to Mexico, it's a little frustrating. Or if someone thinks that beef is a vegetable, it's hard to believe they don't know the truth. And if someone thinks that people in America speak American, please tell them to go to school. Number 4 is punishment. Punishment means a penalty received for doing something bad. It's something that you have to do after breaking a rule. If you do a very serious crime, you may have to go to jail. And in the old days, teachers could actually hit the bad students as a kind of punishment. Times sure have changed. Checklist. Now we'll talk about the important points of making a short speech. First, did you follow a good order? The most important point is to start with a clear introduction. I did that by saying, in my opinion, if someone drives drunk, their license should be revoked. Next, it's good to give a reason. Then you have to explain the reason. In today's speech, I mentioned the opposition, but it's not necessary. Then I gave another reason. And of course, explain all your reasons. The most important point is to start with a clear introduction. But then when you give your reasons, make sure you explain them with more details. You may give the opposition if you have time, but then you should give another reason if you can, and explain it well. The next point is to include specific details and examples. Remember, when you include details, you talk about who, what, where, when, how, and why. In today's speech, who means an acquaintance and a drunk driver. Then, speaking of what, I mentioned accidents, injuries, deaths, and terrifying moments in life. Talk about where if you can. I said the drunk driver went through the red light. When things are happening every year and in our life. How is a little difficult. How does a license show you can drive? By training and testing. Everyone knows how dangerous it is. And how did he drive? Without stopping at the red light. Finally, don't forget to ask the question why. The answer is because nobody with a license can claim ignorance, and because the danger is so high. Now, maybe you can see how details have a good effect on your speech. With a lot of details, it's easier to imagine what the speaker wants to say. Point 3. Is there some variety? When you use variety in your grammar, your speech becomes more interesting, and it's natural anyway. I began by saying, a license proves that you have been trained. This is the present perfect grammar, like when you say, you have done something. But it's also combined with the passive, like when you say, you are trained. Together it becomes, you have been trained. It's a good, high-level grammar point. Then I said, they must know how dangerous it is. Here I used must to show that I infer something. Infer means you know something is true by looking at the situation. So, if you have a friend who's from Mexico, you can say, he must eat spicy food. Next, I mentioned an acquaintance whose car was hit. This time I used the passive grammar. And then, at the end I said, the punishment should be very strict. Now I'm using should to give my advice. I used various kinds of grammar to explain my ideas. It's natural and sounds good. Point number 4. Did you use appropriate vocabulary? When you think of the topic of the speech, you should think of related words that match. As you know, today's topic was about drunk driving and the punishment. Let's see if my words are related. Well, in the beginning I said the license should be revoked. You can also say take away. Next I said operate an automobile. This is very good. Operate is the word for when someone uses a machine. And automobile is another word for car. So if you can say operate an automobile, you sound good. Now I used the word permission to drive. I already used the word license several times in this speech, so I wanted to say it a different way. But besides license, you could also say a permit. And of course, I used the word punishment. You could also say penalty. But when thinking of this topic, all of these are good words to use. Point number 5. Did you stay on message? Stay on message is an expression used by people who make speeches. It means you should focus on the main idea. Let's see. For the introduction, I said, if someone drives drunk, their license should be revoked. So this is my main idea that I have to focus on. You can't have a license if you're driving drunk. Well, I mention licenses a couple of times, and then I talk about revoking the permission to drive. I still talk about drunk drivers, and then I finish by saying the punishment should be very strict. So if we look at the whole speech, and everything I talk about one more time, we see that from the beginning all the way down to the end, I stay focused on the main idea. So now we can see that you have many things to think about. First, you have to put your speech in a good order. Start in the beginning with a good introduction. Then you have to include many details. Remember to think about who, what, where, when, how, and why. Next, it's good to use variety. Think about your grammar and sentence patterns. You can use different verb tenses to change your grammar, and use longer sentence patterns or shorter ones. For athletes, balance and speed are very good, but so are strength and toughness. If you are an athlete, being fast and strong would be perfect. And use the right vocabulary. If you like insects, don't say that ants live in houses. Ants live in colonies. And finally, you have to stay on message. And that means you have to focus. While doing all of these things would be great, there's actually one more point. And that's automaticity, or fluency. Actually, native speakers do all of these things naturally when they speak every day. You do this speaking your own language. So when you speak, try to speak naturally. If you do this, you seem more confident. Then the audience will respect you more, and they might even agree with you. Next question. Some people believe that students should spend more time in math and science classes rather than humanities and social science classes. What is your opinion and why? Give details and examples to support your view. Go ahead, try this question on your own. Think about how you would answer this question, and then your hard work will give you something to celebrate. All right, that's all for today. Thank you for watching. I hope these videos are good practice for you. If you think it's interesting or helpful, please push the like button below and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Also, if there's something you would like to hear me talk about in the future, just leave a comment. I'll see you next time. Thank you.